And good evening, good afternoon, good morning to wherever you are watching here in the Philippines and all over the world. And welcome to my podcast, the RJ Ledesma podcast. Now, here on my podcast, I like to interview the country's trailblazing and pioneering business personalities and entrepreneurs to learn more about how they think about doing business. What are their success secrets? Are they willing to share that with us? How have they innovated, pivoted, evolved their businesses during the pandemic? And more importantly, what business opportunities do they see emerging in this new normal scenario? Now, is there a business personality or entrepreneur that you would like me to interview here on the program, on the podcast? Please let me know. I would love to have them over here. I would love to learn from them. Just drop us a message. I'd also like to let all of you know we are live also as well on YouTube and Kumu. Tonight, I have a very interesting individual joining me here in the show. I've actually reconnected with him during the Globe Gcash Futurecast event, and he is one of the suppliers of the whole Gcash ecosystem, which makes him a very, very interesting individual to the value added that he brings to the Gcash equation. Tonight, we've got one of the co-founders of Bitskwela, JC Macalintal. Now, Bitskwela is a Web3 edutech company that help Filipinos own a piece of the internet. Very interesting. They provide educational engagements, consultations, and learning hub management to onboard organizations and enterprises into Web3. To date, they've got about 40 million Filipinos who they reached for Web3 educational campaigns and endeavors, and they've onboarded Gcash as their Web3 education partner. They've been featured on CNN, Esquire, Bitcoin Magazine, NASDAQ, Yahoo Finance, PDAX. And at the same time, we're also going to talk to JC as an entrepreneur himself. He is a venture developer, community builder, and content manager for massive entrepreneurs and companies in the Philippines. You might not know it, but maybe your favorite influencer, your favorite company, his business, or rather his content is being managed through JC and his virtual agencies. So with that, please welcome my good friend here right now, JC Macalintal. JC,
Right,
welcome to the show. Really great to see you over here.
right. Thank you so much for that warm welcome, RJ. And this is one of my dreams to be part of the RJ Ledesma podcast. So glad to be here and share my story and add value to the listeners that we have. Thanks for having me.
And I'm sure you'll add a lot of value here tonight, JC. And I think the most important question for us to ask unang-una, no, is Bitskwela. I mean, I was briefly describing it here in my intro of you, but tell me a bit more. um, just what we often call the show the elevator pitch. You know what? When you were pitching the show to Gcash, or you were pitching the app to Gcash, they weren't sure it was. What was your pitch to Gcash about what Bitskwela is all about?
You see, our pitch is that billions in pesos and dollars are constantly being lost in the Web3 ecosystem simply because people don't understand the technology yet, or simply because they're not educated enough. Now,
Mhm.
that problem comes into play when decision makers and from different enterprises and government officials are not well aware of the limits of Web3 and what it can do.
Mhm.
Now, with Bitskwela in mind, we help Filipinos own a piece of the internet by helping decision makers, enterprise owners, basically the people who decide for organizations, understand how they could bring their web to business towards Web3. And since then, RJ, we have been the formal Web3 learning partner of Gcash for G Crypto. And basically, our tagline, helping Filipinos own a piece of the internet, is basically helping people understand, okay, this is what you can do in Web2. Now, how can you do that in Web3, both as a business and as an individual?
Got that. Now let's unpack a couple of things over there, JC, because there are people here who are extremely literate when it comes to Web3 and crypto, and there are people who are just saying, "I don't even know what Web1 is." So can you help us get a better understanding, just so that we're on the same page? What exactly is Web Web2 and Web3? So we know where we are, why it's so important to know about this.
Of course. And the good thing about Web3 is that, in simpler terms, it's just proof of evolving consumer behavior. So it evolved from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3. But what is exactly Web 1? San ba to talaga nagsimula?
Mm.
And Web 1 actually started when the internet came through. And an example of Web 1 is Wikipedia, a page where you could only read, right? We can only scroll through Wikipedia, we can only read, but we cannot interact. We can't comment. There's no way, shape, or form for us to like, react, or whatnot. That's Web 1. Everything is about reading. Web 2, on the other hand, is about reading and writing. This is
Mhm.
where we interact with one another, comment with one another, similar to what we're doing here. We're in Facebook right now. We're live now. That's Web 2. We're able to interact with one another. In other words, we're able to read and write. Now, for the past years, here's the interesting part, RJ. For the past years, decades, and arguably centuries, we've been building brands across the World Wide Web. Now, across the World Wide Web, we're only reading and writing. Say, for example, the RJ Ledesma podcast has 3,000 followers, or for example, big brands such as I don't know, influencers or celebrities who have 1 million followers and above. Now, the big problem here is that what we produce in Web 2, we don't actually own them. So no matter how many millions of followers that we have, no matter how big the platform that we have, we're actually just renting from these big internet enterprises. That's when the idea of Web3 came to be. Why not, if there was a place in the internet, why not if we could read, write, and most importantly, own a piece of the internet? So that's what Web3 is. It's about owning a piece of the internet, not just reading and writing, but actually owning. And that's NFTs, that's cryptocurrencies, that's decentralized finance. And a lot of them are simply because evolving consumer behavior. People are beginning to understand the importance of having to own a piece of the internet, just like we want to own our properties, our houses, our money, etc. So that's how Web3 came to be.
Okay. And now tell me exactly the pain point that led you to developing Bitskwela. But more importantly, I mean, the way that I see it right now is Bitskwela, it's a great advocacy. But is it more of an advocacy, or is Bitskwela also a business that makes money? I
Yeah,
hope you understand where I'm coming from my
of
perspective.
course. Yeah, and no worries, RJ. This is always one of the questions that we get asked. How does actually Bitskwela make money? And the answer is we are the official educational partners of the biggest companies and enterprises here in the Philippines. So we're actually both consultants and education providers and education managers. So we work with enterprises for that. Now, with the way that Bitskwell is structured, that's what we do. We work with decision makers as either consultants or education providers. So how our business model works, We provide curriculums and learning hub management, similar to what we're doing with what we're building in terms of Web3 education. For example, a course, what are NFTs, and then we license them for a particular enterprise or a company. So that's how the entire advocacy works. Because I understand, some people think that it's sort of an advocacy, but we also have services, management services that we're providing to our clients, people who want to join from Web 2 to Web 3, especially businesses who want to pivot towards crypto.
So I'm trying to appreciate. So that means that the pain point which you saw was that many people, just regular people or even companies, didn't know how to shift people or to better understand what the Web 3 was all about from Web 2. What put you guys in that ideal position? Kumbaga, what was the secret sauce or gave you the advantage to say na kami yung mas magaling magturo ng Web 3 or kami may advantage magturo ng paano pumasok sa Web 3 imbis sa mga other people? Because if you think about it, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, you guys are, of course, only the younger ones like
We are young,
yourselves.
yeah.
You can understand it much better than probably me, who comes from Gen X, no? But what made you guys best suited, I guess, to launch this one when you were when you were trying to offer your services?
Yeah, that's a really great question, RJ, because Bitskwela just turned one. It was our
Oh,
first
congratulations to all
anniversary.
the Bitskwela hands there.
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah. Thank you so much, RJ. And that's a question that we always get. In fact, that's part of our deck now, actually. The way that we introduce our team. And what makes us really different, what helped us, you might be interested, oh, ba't kayo napili ng GCash for their Web3 education endeavors? And the answer is, it is a requirement. It is our requirement in our team that you have an education experience. Like you should have taught one way or another. And of course, dapat meron kang Web3 experience for the past years. I'd say, RJ, what helped us close these deals and this positioning is how heavily involved we are when it comes to education in Web3. Because the entire CISU team of Bitskwela, though we're young, I'm 20 years old, so we've worked with a lot of companies from Web2, and we were able to transfer our results and portfolio towards Web3. Now, personally, with the entire team's experience combined, I think we have more than um, 25 years of combined experience in Web3, in different niches. I think Jiro is also watching, our CEO. So he's the one who basically led us through this. And it's just a combination of having the right people with the right skill set and experience, which helped us close it. Because back then, when Jiro started Bitskwela, because I came in co-founder a little bit later, we were the only ones who were actually doing this right, the Web3 education. And then players came in, but when the new players came in, we had already we were already doing talks, Web3 talks in partnership with Globe already by that time. So there you go, timing and
Okay.
positioning.
Hello, is it Giros? Is that your co-founder? Giros ba? Tama ako?
Yep, Jiro Reyes.
Giro, how are you? How are you, Giro? If you're right to listening, shout out to you and to for helping co-found this one. What was the pain point that initially pushed Giros to start doing this business? I'm curious.
Oh yeah. What initially made him what made him go through this was his story of how he was eating shomai one time while he was in university. I think he was still in college there. We've talked about this a lot of times in a lot of podcasts, how we got into Web3. And by that time, I think he was finding other side hustles. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where he got into crypto and Web3. Now, initially, he also thought it was a scam. And that's the problem with Web3. It's that people don't understand what it could do, and if people do understand what it can possibly do, they don't understand the limits of the technology. So what Hiro did is he initially built different groups where he would be educating people. Okay, this is what Bitcoin does, this is what cryptocurrency is, this is what Web3 is. And then over time, it boomed to an advocacy. So it was an advocacy organization first, and then we became a Web3 edutech company when we saw that, my God, guys, there is really a pain point in the space where decision makers want to join Web3. They want to build companies in Web3, but they don't know how to pivot properly. And that's where we came in. Education, consulting, and upskilling for Web3 as well.
Got that. So it's technically not it's not structured like a startup, but more like a sort of an educational consultancy slash advocacy. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's more of a startup and an agency at the same time, an educational agency.
I see. Because that just means that moving forward, the way that the organization will grow is not the same way that an app will grow because it's meant to be
Exactly.
really a consultancy agency to help people with their skill sets. Is that or help companies adjust to the new skill sets that they need to be part of Web3? Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now let's go into this a bit more. I was thinking you were saying that what people don't realize is what it can possibly do. If we're talking here right now to different, let's say people my age are the decision makers in companies, and although they've come across it a bit, uh, Web3 and NFTs and crypto and all those different things, and you say what it can possibly do, and many of them are still very much part of the regular economy, right? Help me better understand how do you convince people to say not to leave it, but what it can possibly do if they better understand Web3. What can it possibly do for their businesses if they understand it much better?
Exactly. And I guess one word to place it, like what separates a Web3 educated executive
Mhm.
versus a non Web3 educated executive is that you're positioned for the future and you learn how to build the company independently, decentralized way. Why is that? It's because, for example, one of the use cases that we have for Web3, of course, cryptocurrencies. Um, I know a lot of executives here that are listening. We're usually dealing with contracts, service fees, right? And one of the pain points, especially since I mean we're running our own companies, we want to be able to maximize revenue per square inch of our companies and get things done fast, right? And sometimes banks just can't cut it. Like you have to wait for their permission for say a seven-figure transfer. It takes a while for that to happen. For example, if you're gonna invoice someone from PayPal, it's a lot of the percentages uh, are being cut. So you're not getting it. Number one, you're getting it slow. Number two, it's not gonna arrive to you in full, right? So another case study of that is cryptocurrencies. Like you could easily transfer seven figures or any figure that you want through cryptocurrency in just basically a snap of a finger or seconds without having your banks basically approve it. So it makes global transactions or big scale transactions easier and more executable, if that makes sense. But there are also other use cases. For example, or NFTs. Basically, these are digital collectibles. A good case study here is what PDAX did lately with their NFT platform, where I think the Huling El Bimbo tickets were being sold as digital collectibles or as NFTs. So if you bought an NFT, you got access to watching the entire show and whatnot. So there's actually a lot of use cases. But the problem here, RJ, and this is the struggle in Web3 education, it's that since there are different use cases, there are different technologies, because in Web 2, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's TikTok, and other apps and platforms, right? It's also the same with Web 3. There's lots and lots of text and application. Now, the problem here is first, Web 3, before diving into Web 3, people first have to understand okay, for example, payment gateways. If there's a version of that in Web 2, is there an equivalent, better version of that in Web 3? Because that's usually where the problem kicks in. Okay, this is the business model in Web 2. Now, how can we translate that into Web 3? And for the past months or year rather at Bitskwela that we've talking to a lot of CEOs and companies who have consulted us. Okay, how can I do this in Web 3? A lot of them think that the Web 3 technology is just magic, that it can do anything, that it can automate anything. But ultimately, it's just decentralization, really, about Web3. So it's a matter of understanding the business model first, and still the same business method, finding if it's actually reasonable or if there's really a rationale to build your company in Web3. Because I'll be honest with you, not all companies can build in Web3. What's an example? Like Web3 or the cryptocurrency industry is actually fighting, fighting the how do I say this? The remittance industry, because they're conflicting. So it's still a matter of understanding first what you do in Web 2, and understanding if there's a better business model that you can implement in Web3. And that's what we do. Executive education.
Eh, And speaking of executive education, let's look at companies. What, in your own experience from the companies that you've consulted, what are the type of companies that are prime, that are logically the best suited to enter into Web3, and what are the processes in companies that are best suited to be to evolve into a Web3 experience?
Mm, I love this. Actually, there are a lot of use cases I have on my mind, but let's be general for now. As long as you're a company that takes in payments, you can benefit in Web3. Why? Cryptocurrency. Because we all know that if you have more payment methods, you can reach more customers, right? So for me, it's really a no-brainer to take payments in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or other cryptocurrencies, which are being done by our friends in Pouch in Boracay. If you've been in Boracay, there's an entire Bitcoin island there, that basically takes payment in Bitcoin. Yeah. And what has that done for their business? Tourists all around the world, they don't need to cash out fiat or Philippine peso anymore. Through cryptocurrencies, when they travel, they're just paying crypto. No need
Mhm.
to transfer anything. So as long as you're taking in payments, which I think all businesses are, right? They're accepting payments. Then there's a benefit for you, in Web3 or crypto. Another use case that we've seen applied over and over and over again. NFTs are digital collectibles. How does this manifest as memberships? Say for example, the what we recently did, in Gcash, the House of Ulala NFT collection that we launched. Basically, that NFT grants you access to be part of a community of Rin Barrera, a legendary artist, which whose painting basically sells $2,000 upwards.
Mhm.
And he has 1 to 2 years of waiting list, but with NFTs, you can easily own a piece of his art for just a fraction of that amount. So, um, a lot of technology is available here, RJ. But as long as you're a business, then I'd say, the first step that we recommend is accepting more payment gateways, which is crypto. And how we help them get there is, of course, we build a wallet address for their company. We help them build invoices, stuff like that. So it's still the same, Web two processes, just using a different technology.
Okay. Um, the other point, I guess, is the dark side, or maybe, or about the
Oh yeah.
red flags that people see when it comes to this one, especially when it comes to Web3. Because, like I said, I guess, for the younger set that you educate, they understand these things more intuitively than, I guess, people my age and older might understand seeing the red flags when it comes to engaging in Web3 as commerce, and particularly in the months of commerce. What are the red flags that people should watch out for, or businessmen should watch out for when it comes to trying to do business on the Web3 platform, whether it's scammers, whether it's technology, or whatever else? What should they watch out for?
Uh, I love this question because this is one of the things that we always advocate for. But before I name out a few red flags that in general, businessmen, retailers, people who want to get into Web3 should watch out for. I want to say first that, there's a common misconception that Web3 is a scam, and I mean, it's not a scam if you would really view the technology, but there are definitely scammers. Those are two different things. Now, the argument there is that now the argument then is, okay, then why is it that it looks like there are more scams in Web3 than there are in Web2? And I have this answer. It's simply because people don't understand the technology yet, and that's why they're prone to being more scammed. Now,
Mhm.
the thing is, when it comes to scams, there are also scammers in Web 2. And
Mhm.
these same scammers are the same ones that are scamming in Web 3. And
Ah.
how do they do that? For example, if you don't understand real estate, somebody can scam you in real estate, right? Like, give you obnoxious amount of investment terms with long payment options, etc. So it's the same principle. Now, here are the things that you have to watch out for when it comes to red flags in the Web3 space. Number one, guarantees. Because if a project is guaranteeing you X amount of yield or X amount of profit on a day-to-day basis, that's one of the red flags. Why? Because crypto or Web3 in general is a new space, and therefore, since it's new, it's really, really, really volatile. There's a joke in the Web3 space, RJ, that if you don't know what Web3 is, or if you haven't done your research yet, and you want to get into crypto, and you have the choice between entering the market in crypto or sabong, mas better yung chances sa sabong kesa kesa pumasok sa crypto. Because why? If you entered the wrong way, chances are seconds after you'll be liquidated.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you know how to enter, if you know the technology behind the different coins or tokens that you're researching, then the same can also apply. So guarantees are something to watch out for, since it's a really, really volatile space.
Great. Okay. Now, these are the red flags that we're seeing, and you are into education, so maybe a bit of a crash course is maybe what do you just want executives to know, or basically business people to know when it comes to Web3? Maybe provide some principles that will preview what goes into your class, but really, if there's key things that you want people to know, what are they about Web3? That's very important for them.
Yeah. You should know more about Web3 because number one, it's the closest thing to ownership that we have in the internet, because it's really you really get not just to rent platforms or interact with one another. This is where you're basically acquiring properties in the internet. And we all know that the internet is the future that we're heading. I mean, we're in a digital economy now. Second, it's also about decentralization. Um, uh, the difference between making crypto payments or crypto transfers between bank transfers is that bank transfers approve, crypto transfers confirm. Those are two different things, no? So of course, as business owners, executives, we love equity, we love ownership, and most importantly, we love to be able to pivot when we want to. So if you're after that, then maybe you should start learning about Web3 at www.bitskwela.com. We actually have a lot of courses available now about blockchain fundamentals, NFT fundamentals. So and those are for free on our website.
Okay, let me put out your website. It's www.bitskwela,
Bitskwela.com.
bitskwela.com. So again, Jasper, if you're there, my producer, if you can flash it on the screen, so those who want to get a free class from Bitskwela, they know what to do. Are there these are so all the courses that you have for Bitskwela are all online, or are there also face-to-face classes for Bitskwela?
Yeah, for now, all of them are online, but we also have our own community where we do give daily updates and weekly newsletters. So that's Crypto Education Philippines by Bitskwela community on Facebook. If you want to know more about the space and industry news, you can also go there.
Got that. Got that. Now, in terms of we're always talking to entrepreneurs here right now, and because of what you're doing in Bitskwela and with NFTs and with crypto, you're seeing that there's a lot of opportunities emerging, particularly in these different fields and niches. What are you seeing as opportunities still for entrepreneurs within that space? And it's very big, but right now, for especially if you're a Pinoy entrepreneur.
Yeah. In what terms?
Well, what are there new businesses or new business ventures that they can come up with, or business opportunities that you are seeing that you're saying,
Mm,
this part is still very, it's still a very gray space or very white space. Wala pa masyado pumapasok dito.
mm,
I think that there's an opportunity to grow a business in this area.
yeah. Personally, I think the industries that are about to blow up in the next years are I think I have three on my list right now. It's number one, of course, content, media companies who are taking the internet by storm. Because if you have a follower, if you have a community, you can basically sell and scale anything. That's the power of building a personal brand or a personal media brand. Second thing is, of course, e-commerce is still at play. I mean, aside from our internet activities as Filipinos, what else do we love? buying. That's why a lot of e-commerce companies are still scaling right now. And then of course, third, Web3 and crypto. The Philippines is one of the best when it comes to Web3 adoption around the world. And the
Mhm.
interesting part here, RJ, is that only, I think officially, only 8% of the world is in Web3 right now. So versus other technologies, we are still very, 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 very early. Now, a lot of people around the world still don't know, or even if they know, they aren't part of Web3 yet. They aren't participating yet. So there's still opportunity for Web3, especially in the lots of different emerging technologies that we have now. And the good thing here, RJ, when it comes to Web3 and crypto, is that even enterprises are pivoting towards Web3. PayPal is implementing crypto payment options.
Mm.
MasterCard is also about to implement crypto payment options. Even Gcash now has Gcrypto. So we're witnessing massive adoption happening in our own eyes, driven by enterprises with millions and millions of user bases. But the thing is, even though these enterprises have those features or apps, people aren't still participating yet. Now, why is that? Web3 education. That's why we exist.
Got that. Got that. Really good opportunities and very insightful ones at that, JC. If you just don't mind, I want to ask a bit more about e-commerce. Um,
Sure.
where is it good to play in the e-commerce game right now? I mean, there's two. Of course, to be a platform, which is a bit of a challenge right now because the platforms are filled. There's the competition is fierce. Where can entrepreneurs still leverage playing in e-commerce, where
Yeah.
there's still opportunity?
Yeah. I'm saying this both as a venture developer and a marketer. The TikTok product market is crazy. Like how it's grown for the past months, really grown very, very, very fast. But I think profit margin plays and e-commerce ventures alone, if we're going to isolate it, I think our friends in the drop shipping, um, liquidating and then live selling are winning. The people who are acquiring supplies of goods in liquidation pricing, and then you have different live sellers to sell those for you. The profit margins are really great in that venture. And I think you know who I'm talking about. See, one of the best examples here is Carlosito. I think he's one of our friends in Facebook. Is doing that exact business model right now.
Oh, fantastic. So really a lot of great opportunities that we're seeing emerging over here. And thanks so much for explaining a bit more about Bitskwela. Again, for those who want to check out Bitskwela and the different classes, again, you can visit www.bitskwela.com. Now, for the second part of this program, I actually wanted to talk to you more also as JC Macalintal, the entrepreneur, because I know, JC, that aside from coming on board to help becoming the chief marketing officer of Bitskwela, you are also just like myself. You're a serial entrepreneur, and you have a business called Multiplier. What exactly is that business called Multiplier?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Bitskwela is just one of my ventures. But I'm in the private equity space like you. Building startups, different companies as a serial entrepreneur. But Multiplier is basically a venture development studio, which we are about to launch this year formally. So you heard it here first at the RJ Ledesma podcast. I've been saving this for quite a long time actually,
Fantastic,
and
fantastic.
what it is it's a family of agencies that provide venture development services for serial entrepreneurs. So the idea here is that for serial entrepreneurs who are building a lot of ventures, a lot of companies, instead of talking to multiple agencies or to multiple point person per company that you have, why not work with just one team with the right super team, one point person to scale all of your companies, which can offer marketing, advertising, community, media buying, all service providing management services that you could think of. And we've been growing our portfolio to date with in ads, marketing, and other service management activities that we've done. We've generated 10 figures in USD for client partners to date. Now, how have we done it? It's just about finding the right talent. So for the past years, I've actually been building different manpower communities social media marketing Philippines community. Now we're helping the freelancers in the Philippines community as well. We're tapping into a network of 1 million talented, highly global competitive Filipinos. That's why we can do it. And what the problem that I'm solving in that family of agencies is that the reason as to why startups fail or tech companies or any other companies fail, even though they have millions of dollars in funding, is that they don't have the right people to execute and get things done. And I'm foreseeing scarcity in the human resources side, not in the financial resources side. So that's why we're building that agency. So it's a family of agencies for serial entrepreneurs to build and scale their companies.
Got that. So you're sort of like the one-stop shop that
Exactly.
startups go to when they want to massively market their company. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So you sort of fill in the pain point, saying, okay, you know what to do, but you need more people to adopt your app or your startup or the use your product or services. They go to you, and that's it. That's basically what multiplier does. But if I look at it here right now, it's a great idea. But what makes you different, I guess, from let's say a traditional marketing agency also or an ad agency that does the same thing? What makes it different for you? Is it basically your, I guess, better understand or a more intimate understanding of how marketing is done in this sort of new normal world?
Yeah. It's not just about marketing, it's more of our intimate understanding to really build and develop ventures. So we approach marketing and advertising not just in a marketing standpoint but in a venture development standpoint. So what's venture development? Actually, it's a really new niche. I've only met one other venture developer here in the Philippines. um, and what venture development is basically helping the founders on full stack operations, marketing, and everything. So it touches everything really. So our focus is really maximizing revenue per square inch of the company, and who doesn't love that, of course?
Exactly. And I guess we'll have to we'll go a bit more into this discussion. Um, can you redefine again for me venture development? What role do you play in a company if you are a venture developer? Because we know what a venture capitalist is. That's basically the money coming in. But what does a venture developer do? Do you somebody comes with you with an idea and you sort of say, okay, for the parts that are missing in that idea, I'll fill in the blanks.
Yeah, you actually nailed it. If venture development exists within the venture capital and the startup ecosystem, so think of it this way: there's a founder, and then there's a venture capitalist. So the founder actually looks for funding, right? So they are looking for funding with the VCs, but in order to fill in the gaps, a venture developer exists to validate the business model, to make sure that the founder is executing the proper go to market. So think of a venture developer as the right hand of the founder, that they need to be able to scale everything, because um, a venture developer is involved in the entire business operation, but heavily in business development, marketing, and operations.
I
But
see.
simply put, my role is to build, help, and scale and develop startup ventures to enterprises.
Got that. Now, I'm very curious. How did you come across this pain point? Because this is what I call an iterative process. Siyempre, it's not the first time na you say, oh, kailangan ko maging venture developer.
Yeah.
How, what is the step by step? Para ito yung problem which pivoted to this problem, and I want to solve this problem, but eventually I found out, but this was what had to be solved. And how did it eventually become? How did it finally consolidate to becoming multiplier as a venture developer?
Yeah. So the problem that I actually discovered
Initially, oh,
initially was, it was a very intimidating number that 90% of startups actually fail.
mm-hmm.
So I looked into it. Okay, what then, if 90% of startups fail, what then can make it successful? And I've learned that funding is the way to go. Founders, of course, having the right people is also the way to go. But the thing is, when we look at it at scale, even when funded, the mortality rate of startups is still really high, around 40 to 60%.
Mm-hmm.
That's millions of USD when it comes to when it comes to funding. Yet they still fail. Now, that got me curious. If they had the right funding, if they had the right capital support, network support from big names, big venture capitalist firms, what then is missing? Manpower. And what does the Philippines have, especially when it comes in the service providing niche? Filipinos are known to be globally competitive when it comes to talent, right? So that's when I looked into virtual assistants, RJ. So
Okay.
if there are BPOs, the biggest BPOs are in the Philippines, right? I mean, concentrics, stuff like that. We're basically servicing different clients abroad with Filipino talent, no? So that's where I found the gap. Okay, so if there are VAs, but if there are VAs that are basically doing a lot of stuff for different international companies, meron bang ganun sa venture capital world? And that's where I discovered the term venture developer. So instead of focusing on the financial capital aspect, venture developers focus on the human capital, on the resources that can actually get the job done. And that's everything involving marketing, operations, business dev, building and scaling with the right people. So that's how I found it.
And how did you get into that company in the first place? Because, admittedly, from both Filipino culture standpoint and from doing business here, you're a relatively young man. They go, how can this person put together this business? Why will I open the door to him? And I'm sure that, not to be condescending,
Yeah,
but you've encountered that on the way.
so many times.
So what what how did you initially convince people that this solution that you had would work? Where I'm going to help venture build you by providing you my virtual assistants.
Yeah, it's a really valid question. Like, I don't blame entrepreneurs for asking me that, especially when they learn about how old I am. I really had that struggle ever since I was 13, 14, because I started offering my services when I was 12.
Mhm.
I started offering my services when I was 12. So in particular, I was offering my writing and marketing services then, because I started really young and early, RJ, when it comes to writing. I've been in journalism. Doon ako nagsimula when I was young. As early as grade 1, I was already in the school press conferences. So that's when I learned news writing, feature writing, and then I've started to compete when I was in grade 1 all the way through high school to college. I never actually stopped.
Mhm.
And by that time, it was during high school where I was started to be flown in different countries in the Philippines just because I was competing, and then I was able to manage the school newspaper then. So that's where I learned other forms of writing like feature writing, editorial writing, photojournalism. So that's where I got a lot of my marketing background on, because in essence, for me, the difference between journalism and marketing is that journalism is telling a story in pursuit of the truth, while marketing is telling a story to convert, to sell products, right?
Mhm.
So I found that I was able to transfer that, and by the time I was in high school, when I decided to offer my services um to to different companies, and I had to do that by that time because I wanted to help out at home. Kasi a lot of people don't know this, but I don't actually come from a well-off family. So anak palengke ako. No, I
Mhm.
was I'm proud of this. My mother and
Yes,
father.
proudly anak palengke ka, di ba?
Yes, of course. No, and my mother and father dito sa Cuenca Public Market. They're listening now, by the way.
Kumusta po?
So
Kumusta kayo?
thank you. No,
Kayo
mama
din
and papa, no.
kayo din ang magpakita dito, babatiin natin.
So ayun, no? And by the time I was 12, that's when I started, maybe since I've been winning awards, how about offer ko kaya to sa iba? And I offered my writing and research services first to business clients, just sending different letters. Hi, I'm yung piniprint pa noon eh, right? And then I
Oo.
was also helping my clients, my classmates in when it comes to like consulting. Like I was teaching them how to write essays, yung mga ganun. Small gigs, no, for small gigs for me. And then but by the time I was 13, 14, 15, that's when I learned to harness the power of social media. No, now, okay, what I can do writing pala on journalism, on newspaper, I can also do online. And that's where it changed for me. No, by the time I was in senior high school, I've already been sa non-profit ako nagsimula RJ. No, my thought process was my thought process was I need to be able to build my results first before I can really charge premium.
Mm-hmm.
I have to build my results first because who in the right mind, a business owner like you, would trust a 15-year-old, right? For
Mm-hmm.
marketing and scaling efforts. That was the challenge that I
Oh,
had because even though I had the results that time, I was winning awards. I had the right case studies. Nobody wanted to trust me none. No. So I had difficulty noon. But then by the time I was in senior high school, grade 12, no, around um I think 16 or 17, that's when the pandemic hit. And that was the turning point for me, RJ. Because when the pandemic hit, entrepreneurs were forced to look for other employment setups,
okay.
right?
So the pandemic was actually a boon to your business.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. So it leveled the playing ground for me. So people can it when the pandemic happened, it wasn't that crazy anymore to hire a 16-year-old or 17-year-old to handle your social media campaigns, right? Because you had to continue business operations. And it leveled the playing ground for me to the point that I was able to reach out clients abroad. That's when I found out about virtual assistants. And for the past 4 years, ever since I was 16, I've been reaching out to the global market. So, ang mindset ko nun, Brother RJ, okay, kung hindi ako tanggapin dito sa Pilipinas as a service provider, if I can't get clients here, try ko kaya abroad. So I reach out to real estate companies, realtors, e-commerce brands in the U.S., Canada, and then I was able to close my first one. So they didn't care about my age. It was the pandemic. Then by that time I was preparing already for 6 years, all my case studies, all my strategies, so I really knew what to do. I just really had to close my first client. Then after that, the next month I got a referral. Then the next month I got another referral. And it's been continuing for the past years until such time that last year, those international results I was able to convert into national partnerships in the Philippines. So it was actually reversed for me. I first went international and then national. So yeah, the pandemic leveled the playing ground for me as a service provider. And that's when the opportunity came in because people were actually forced to look for other employment setups. And I call that the power of social media, no, like sabay na lumiliit at lumalawak yung mundo. Because if your services are not valued in your current market, then look for another marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
We can access the global marketplace anyway. So that's the story of my career, basically.
What point did it come for you, JC? I'm sure that it's there's some points that there always, as an entrepreneur, there are many successes, there are successes and failures in the business. But I want to ask you, was there any particular time when you were growing the business that you felt that I want to give up, it's not going to work? Sometimes when you share those stories, sometimes it inspires the other entrepreneurs also
Yeah.
who go through the process. When did it happen for you?
Yeah, I think it happened to me, um 2021. Yeah, end of 2021. Because by that time, suddenly nag-ease into F2F ng konti.
Yes, yes,
No?
yes, yes.
So some of our clients actually wanted to pause their retainers. No? So it was a challenge for me then to prove that we really had value versus face-to-face setups. No, now we found the formula because we're still in business right now. But by then, my God, it was so, let's just say, disempowering. No, na parang you're losing clients due to market sentiment. And then you really want to scale. You had these numbers planned out, your roadmap planned out, and then suddenly that happens. So that was definitely one of my moments of weakness. Now parang, is this the right thing for me? Like, because before that, I was really sure that we understood
Mhm.
what we were, because this venture development side I only discovered lately. I think that's when I discovered venture development side, after I almost quit, because I had to find out. I was actually challenged. I had to find out, okay, ano ba talagang offer? What can I really offer? Because I knew it wasn't just marketing. I knew it wasn't just virtual assistant, because I'm also building different companies under my belt. So I had to find a way to cut through the noise and help customers understand that why we're good at what we do. It's simply because yung pala, RJ, I'm not just offering virtual assistant services to clients abroad. Eh. What I'm offering pala is venture development services. And those are two different things. So I almost quit, but I found the factor, and that factor has helped us work with, dream clients, mentors, and of course partners that we have now.
In other words, you had to find another. You were solving other pain point that existed as a result of the adjustment in the new normal. Like for me, in any business, I mean, you establish a certain equilibrium because of the pandemic, and it worked already in the pandemic. But then, as we exit, nako, bagong equilibrium yan ulit.
Bago.
It's
Yeah.
a set of challenges, and that's where the pain points that you realize something else about the business where it has to evolve towards. Now, having said that, what did you feel naman was the point when you're looking at the business where you said, "My God, it's going to succeed. We're going to make it." What point was that you felt? Parang, I can't believe it. It's like this right now. That milestone made you feel that you've achieved something.
Yeah. I can't forget that moment, because I actually had to choose between business and school. No, because I got into my dream school, UP Diliman, Materials Engineering, no, and I think a few weeks in was when I closed my first international client. So I tried to balance it out, RJ. My God, it was driving me nuts. No, like there was too much work to do, too much subjects to study. So I had to make a choice. So my design thinking process was, okay, my God, it's becoming really profitable. Client referrals are kicking in, but they have to choose, no? Because by that time, I mean, I was 16, 17, no? Tapos, my first four-figure dollar retainer came in, and imagine I was 16, 17. That money was life-changing for me, no? That was the time that I told myself, I have to choose if what I really want. Because yung mindset ko naman there was, okay, bakit ba ako nag-aaral? Why am I studying? It's to get a job, hopefully soon, right? And why
Mm-hmm.
do I want to get a job? I want to get a job because I want to earn money. But the earn money is already being shoved into my face right now. No, so I had to make a choice. No, I chose clearly. No? So ang mindset ko was, as long as I have the humility to become a 23-year-old or 24-year-old freshman, then I'll be fine. No? And I chose that path ever since. So it was a time, no, na naging profitable na siya bigla. No, RJ, the interesting about entrepreneurship for me is that the most interesting part is that it's a game of consistency. Like success or overnight success happens slowly and then all at once. Eh. That's a tricky part. Eh. Once you find
Yeah,
product market
there's
fit,
a sort of, it's like a hockey stick.
yeah, exactly. No, so that moment was it for me when number one I was able to successfully tap into the global marketplace and built them results, and then the referrals came kicking in.
Now, after that was done, I guess the next question is, what's next after you hit as a venture developer? We know, okay, you want to be that one-stop shop venture development agency for companies. But what's the scale model for this one? How exactly will you grow it?
Yeah. So how we grow it is basically we're targeting three partnerships. Three important ecosystem partners. Number one, of course, partnership with venture capitalist firms. So, the dream goal here, RJ, is to be able to partner with a VC firm, and then all of the companies that they incubate or or infuse funding in, we are their chosen service providers for scaling. No? That's the no-brainer one. The second part is we're working with we're working with a portfolio of accelerators. So again, the people that they accelerate, the companies that they give funding, we're the ones to help them. And of course, the third one, the normal, I guess, partnerships, B2B partnerships, where we talk with startups or enterprises, because in essence it's still a boutique agency. Like, we still tailor fit every service we provide depending on where they are. So those three ecosystem partners are how we scale everything.
If there are people here right now listening, who want to, I guess, use your services, help them better understand who are you looking for that you can best serve. Okay, there's a new startup coming up. They don't know. Okay, I'm going to go to you, but I have no money. I'm just starting off. Or is he a potential influencer? Who are the clients who are ideal for Multiplier?
Yeah, we have three target clients actually. First one, a no-brainer. We want to work with serial entrepreneurs, people who are building and managing their own portfolio of companies. So instead of, for example, if you're building six companies right now, instead of six different service providers for each of your companies, why not just one? No, a company with results that has worked with the biggest brands as well. Second one is where, of course, venture as funded startup founders, people with the right direction, purpose, grit, because that's what we look for when it comes to working with founders. We don't just work with anyone that's funded. We still check if their culture fit with what we do. And those people who know what they want, who know the results that they want, that's the people that we can really work with. And the third one is, of course, creators, or community builders, people who want to build their own personal brands, because ultimately that's an ecosystem play, no? So those three.
Wow. So, just in case they want to become part of your, if they want to employ the services or work together with you guys, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, to get in touch with me, my Twitter's here, at Venture Developer. I am at Venture Developer and everything. Nakuha ko na yan. No, RJ, the moment I found out that I was a Venture Developer, my God, I changed all my names in all of my social media platforms. No? So, kasi it's a really new niche. So, ako pala yung nakakuha nung domain tag na yan. No? But via email, hello at jcmacalintal.com. No? So, you can reach me there.
Got that. Now again, same question I asked you earlier on from Bitskwela, but this time from the multiplier, uh, wearing the multiplier hat. No, what are you seeing as emerging business opportunities, particularly, I guess, not just in the startup founding world, no. I mean, maybe there's some business that you're seeing. Oh, this is really great, but also in your world, in the multiplier world of building businesses, what are the in that ecosystem can people still enter into that they can grow their business or become somebody that there's a niche that they can still enter into and grow.
Yeah, my answer would be the same. Eh. It's still also about content and community, e-commerce, and tech or Web3 companies, because that's usually the clients that we serve. No? So we serve the biggest personal brands as well in the Philippines when it comes to content management and community management services. But the answer is the same. Eh. Like, those trends, the trends that are happening in Web3 are also the same trends that are happening in the multiplier ecosystem.
Got that, got that. You know, it's been a really interesting discussion. I didn't realize that we're almost an hour long, and we've been
Yeah.
speaking in such a broad range of topics. I mean, uh, I'm truly amazed by your story. Hold on, you can open the gift. Sorry, my son comes by to open his gift. So sorry about that.
Hi.
The guest sa aking anak ko dito sa show. But um, before I just realized before I wanted to close up, where did that entrepreneurial spirit come from for you? Because you said you've been working since you were 12 years old,
Yeah.
and you know at 12 years old, you know my kids are concerned about doing their taekwondo class or their grades, but you were concerned there. Was it because your parents, you saw from the example of your parents who were working hard, that you developed your own entrepreneurial spirit and grit? Where did it come from?
Yeah. This is a core memory for me that I also shared in my first podcast, sharing my story. And I found that I was born for that entrepreneurial spirit when I was in elementary school. Just like what I mentioned to you, RJ, like, I've been writing all my life. I've been telling
Mhm.
stories all my life. And when you get into writing, as a grade one kid, you get exposed to writing a pen, like writing with a pen, because usually it's pencil, right? Grades 1 through 4, it's a
Mhm.
pencil. But when you're in journalism, you actually have to write with a ball pen. So I thought that wasn't an advantage for me. But when the time I got into grade 4, where my classmates suddenly pivoted from writing from a pencil to a pen, um, by that time I already knew what ball pens were comfortable to use as a kid, no? And the magical moment for me, RJ, was um yamot ako nun eh. I remember my classmates were borrowing my pens from me because they knew I had the best pens because I used them for competition, you know. And
Okay.
then yamot ako kasi hiram sila ng hiram, no? So suddenly I blurted out, sige na nga, bayaran mo ako. You can use this, 20 pesos. I bought the pen for 7 pesos. They bought it, 20 pesos. And then the same thing happened. So, okay, nalaman ng mga klase ko that I'm selling, that I'm selling ball pens, and then they bought. I came home that day with 100 pesos that I showed to my mom, and she was very surprised. Like, anak, saan galing yan? You'll be scared too, right? But that day, RJ, uh, I, I, I realized that I knew how to sell, and that to me was the turning point. No, so it actually came through with that 100 pesos. I went back into the palengke, yung tindahan sa palengke ng mga ballpen. I shopped for better pens, and then I sold it again at the same markup. I was able to sell them at 25 to 30. And then by the time I was in grade 5 rather, a year from then, I was called in the principal's office. My mom was called to the principal's office. Um, and the point is, the point was they were actually revising the student handbook that students weren't allowed to sell anymore in the school vicinities because I was outselling the school's bookshop. Nobody was buying pens from them. So from then I learned that I knew how to sell, and and the lacking factor to me, that's why I'm heavily invested in human capital right now, RJ, is that I really wanted to build businesses ever since when I was in high school, but I had no capital then. What I only had was my pen, my skills, my services. So that's how I fell in love with the idea of supplying the best of the best human capital in the different service providing management services abroad in the global marketplace. So it started with a pen, and I've been writing
Really,
ever since.
really great story, Jason. I can, JC, and I can really commiserate with you there because for me, writing was also one of my core skills that I used. And people don't know that I was a humor writer many years ago, and that I have several books. But that's for me, writing is my first love, and I was able to translate the skill sets I gained from
Wow.
writing into editing, into
Right?
producing, into acting, even into business. It's a way of thinking. It's really all going back. I'm a creative nonfictionist, so it all goes back to the ability to tell stories. No? And maybe
There.
next time around we can have another chat with other people to tell more about the importance of great storytelling. Now, as we close off this discussion, JC, you've learned a lot. Like you said, you've been hustling since you were grade 4, grade 5. But then, what are the key, I guess, management hacks or things that you want to share with people here right now when it comes to starting and growing the business that you want to share with the aspiring entrepreneurs who are listening to our podcast?
Yeah, management hacks to me, scaling is all about systems. Entrepreneurs have to realize that we don't rise to the levels of our goals. We fall to the levels of our systems, and that's what creates that consistency, that calmness, especially when you're building lots of companies. You have to have structure, otherwise mababaliw ka eh. Like if you're managing a lot of companies at once, managing a lot of teams at once, and you don't have structure or systems, bara-bara mo lang silang tinatrabaho, you're gonna make it, but at the cost of your health. So to me, the management hack is building systems around it, build workflows, systems of operations. Say for example, in what we do in our agencies, we have a 5-step process, no? So which everybody knows, so that at any level of the engagement, somebody can just step in and basically interact, no, with the clients that we're servicing. So it's about building systems, systems of operations, and making sure that you have the right people in your companies, because ultimately it all boils down to that. One of my mentors before, say Sir Fa, he said, no, with the right people nothing else matters, and I still believe that, because you have to find, you don't, you just, it's not enough that you build systems. You have to find the right people who can execute those systems for you, because what you want ultimately is a boring company, because boring is
Yeah,
good. RJ, boring is good,
boring
right?
is good. Yes,
So
agree.
what we want is an extraordinary company that can be run by ordinary people. And how do you do that? Systems.
Fantastic. Really great story to tell here, JC. Again, for those who want to find out more about Web3 and get a free education or follow with the educational advocacy of Bitskwela, you can visit www.bitskwela.com. And for those of you who might be interested to use JC's venture developer services, again, JC, can you please mention your contact information?
Yep. You can contact me here at Venture Developer on all social media platforms, but preferably email at hello@jcmacalintal.com.
Okay, thanks so much, JC. Again, thanks to everybody for listening in to the RG Ledesma podcast. We will see you guys for the next podcast. Again, thanks, guys. Have a great evening. JC, hang
Thank you, guys.
around.